Hey guys, and welcome back to another video. I am so excited to finally be back on YouTube. I just wanted to say before we get into it, thank you so much, all of you guys, for liking, subscribing, and commenting on all of the old videos. I have been reading all the comments since I've been away, and I really appreciate you guys' support. Saying that, where have I been for the past 3 or 4 months? That is an excellent question. I have been studying for a new software engineering job, which I have recently accepted, and for those of you who somehow haven't read the title of the video, I have applied and accepted a job at Amazon. So saying that, I wanted to dedicate my first video coming back to the channel asking, how did I get into Amazon? Hey guys, Future George here. You guys are probably going to notice this, but in the next section, my actual last name is not the last name on my YouTube channel. That's because when I was creating my YouTube channel, my last name was actually taken. So saying that, let's go back to regularly scheduled George content. So the first thing I want to look at, guys, is the resume. Now, in my opinion, the resume is the most important thing that you send off when sending any software engineering application, because it's the very first thing that any recruiter or any interviewer actually looks at. So it's really, really important that we actually send out the best version of our resume. So yes, this is actually the resume that I used at Amazon. We're going to deep dive into all the sections of the resume, and I'm going to give you any tips or tricks that I use to stand out. If you have any questions, of course, guys, please comment down below. Now, if you see here in the work experience section, I have kind of a very simple column layout of the dates that I used, the company name. As you can see here, the company name is actually spelled out in full. In my opinion, that makes it look a little better. Some people at this company like to abbreviate it as BNY Mellon instead of the full title, Bank of New York Mellon. In my opinion, the full name makes it look a little bit more professional. And down here, more importantly, you can see this is the job title I had, and most importantly, the technologies that I used on the job. Now, in my opinion, it fits a lot neater if you actually say, in this job, I use these technologies. Some people like to have a skills section at the bottom. I think that also can work, but personally, I think it clears up a lot of confusion. If an interviewer, if a recruiter is looking at your resume, they will know that at this job, you use these technologies, right? In my opinion, that's really, really important. Now, you guys may have noticed, wow, that is a lot of bullet points. Now, in my opinion, if you've worked at a place for a long time, if you see here, guys, I've worked at this place for over 2 years, then yeah, you should write a lot of bullet points because you've worked on something for a long time. If you've worked on a side project for a long time, if you've worked at a job for a long time, don't be afraid to write a lot of bullet points. So when writing bullet points though, personally what I like to do is I follow these 3 steps. Now, if you look at some of these bullet points, they don't always follow these 3 rules. Personally, I would probably go back and revise my resume to follow these 3 rules more, but let's go over the rules anyway. So usually, if we look here, the first sentence is always, what did you do from a technical perspective? So in this case, I refactored this thing. The second sentence is, well, what did that actually do in plain English, right? You did this technical thing, what did it actually do? Which is usually the second sentence right here. And thirdly, okay, you did this thing in a technical way, you explained it in plain English. Now, what was the result of that thing? Did it actually do something? Did it make people's lives better? Did it drive sales? What did it do? So in this case, I have it right here. The more you can follow this rule, the more people reading a resume will be able to know immediately what you did and how it was impactful. And I think that's really, really important. So as you can see here, let's move on to the next section, the project section. As you can see here, well, I put YouTube as a project. And as you can see here, we have 37.5 total lifetime channel views, which is absolutely amazing. I actually think that number has gone up since then. So once again, thank you guys so much for your support. Saying that though, as you can see, the title of this project, in this case YouTube, is a hyperlink. So when you click on that link, it's actually going to take you to my YouTube channel. This is so important when putting on your project section because you want to let the person know who's looking at your resume that you actually did these projects, right? If you don't link the projects anywhere, they may not know if you actually did the project, right? So it's really important if you did a project on GitHub or you made a hosted website, put the links on your resume so any recruiter or any interviewer can just click on the link and immediately know, okay, this guy actually did the project, right? So saying that, another thing here is the title of the projects. We'll use this as an example. It says Children's Reading Platform. When you read that title, everyone knows what a children's reading platform is. I could have put the actual project name here or something really cool like Wordworm or Read.io or whatever, right? On a resume, you want anyone who's reading it to get an idea of what you did. What was the project name? Instead, I would do, what did the project actually do? A short, simple sentence like this immediately tells people, this is what your project actually did. I like this over just saying the project name because no, not everyone will maybe get the project name, but everyone will get a short sentence like this. So saying that, as you can see, I wrote a lot for this project, well, because I worked on it for a long time, and I tried my best to follow the 3 rules I said earlier. Now, finally, I want to talk a little bit about education. As you guys can see here, I only have 1 line for education, right? I don't even have my GPA here. If you don't have an amazing like top 10 GPA, you're top of your class or top of your college, in my opinion, I would not put it on your resume. As you can see here, I didn't put it on my resume here. And that's because I don't want to give any recruiter or any interviewer a comparison point that isn't in my favor, right? I got like a kind of a middle of the road GPA. I think I got a 3.5 or something like that, right? It's not an amazing GPA, but it's not an awful GPA, right? It's just a good GPA, right? But I don't want my GPA being compared against someone else's because it's not the strongest bit about me, right? I don't want to not move forward in an application because I only got a 3.5 GPA and the other candidate maybe got a 3.7 or a 3.8, right? In my opinion, if you didn't get a really strong GPA like me, focus on the other parts of you that are going to make you look good, right? So in my opinion, I wanted to focus more on my work experience and my side projects than my education. But if obviously you're a new grad developer, obviously I would put more on your education section, maybe some classes that you took, maybe any extracurricular activities you were involved in. But personally, the more you kind of gain experience in the industry, as you can see, this isn't really a new grad resume, but as you gain more experience doing more jobs, doing more side projects, your education section, in my opinion, should just get smaller and smaller and smaller. So that is really my whole resume rundown. One thing I may have forgotten to point out is I actually have a section at the top here with my LinkedIn, my GitHub, my cell phone number, and my email to the left. So that's just really nice to have at the top so people know how to contact you. But with that, I think we're going to now move into how did I actually prepare for the technical part of this coding interview. So the next bit of advice I'm going to give is the most important bit of advice in the entirety of the video. Set yourself up for success in these interviews and you will do well. George, what does it mean set yourself up for success? Well, there are 2 main ways in which your programming or technical ability is tested in these kinds of interviews. The first way is through what's called a programming question, or I like to call them LeetCode questions. And basically, the interviewer will ask you a question and you have to solve the question by writing some code. The reason why it's called LeetCode style questions is because LeetCode.com is the main website in which a lot of these kind of questions are stored and you can practice them in your own time. But saying that, there are thousands of LeetCode questions available and they cover so many different kinds of topics. How do you know which ones to study? Well, there are so many different ways you can practice for this kind of interview, and there are just so many different ways. I'm going to link you some excellent resources in the description below, but I'm going to cover the 2 which I use most often. The first resource I used was a free resource by another YouTuber, Nick White, where he has a huge YouTube series where he goes through tons of different kinds of questions. The answers are in Java, so if you know Java, that's awesome. And I really, really liked how his answers were super succinct and he covered a ton of different kinds of questions to help you get familiar with a lot of the different concepts which they may ask you on the interview. The second resource that I used is another free website, who would know, by another YouTuber called neetcode.io. This one was by far my favorite of the 2. And it really, really went down into the various different kinds of concepts you could be asked on an interview. They have answers in tons of different languages, and I really found how he drew out his solutions and explained the problem before going into the answer really, really helpful for me. So those are the 2 main resources which I use to study LeetCode style questions. I spent about 4 to 5 months studying for these kind of questions in particular because I literally was so rusty. I hadn't, studied these kind of questions in 2 years. So the amount of time you spend studying these really depends on how familiar you are with them. So saying that, let's go move on to how do we study for systems design? So studying for a systems design interview is a bit weird because it's very different than studying for a LeetCode or programming style question because you don't write code in this interview. You work with the interviewer, usually drawing stuff out on a whiteboard or some kind of online drawing software, where you design a system in an abstract way to answer a given question. Now, how do you even study for something like that? There are three main ways in which I did this. The first way is actually designing and building personal projects in my own time. I cannot stress this enough, but the more practice that you have building your own systems, doing your own personal projects, the more confident you'll feel on the actual interview itself, and you'll just have more experience with it, right? So you'll have a higher probability of doing well in this interview. The second resource that I did is signing up for a paid course called Systems Expert. I really like this course. It's probably the best course that I've seen online. It does cost money. I have linked some free alternatives in the description below, but personally, this is the main resource, the main course, which I actually use to study for this stuff. The third thing I did, and this is kind of like something that you may want to do in your free time before you start studying, because it's kind of a long book. Personally, I read this book called Designing Data Intensive Applications. It's a really good book. It's quite long, but it covers a lot of database and data concepts, which I wasn't super familiar with. Another bit of advice I wanted to give is, how do you actually get through your interviews, right? You may have 2 hours or 3 hours or 4 hours of interviews. How do you actually get through them? How do you stay focused? That is a really great question. And honestly, I did 2 steps here, which really helps me. Basically, you want to make sure that you're not getting stuck in your own head. Sometimes you can panic on an interview question and you can go, oh my god, what do I do? I have no idea what to do. And you've gone inside your own head, and at that point, you can't see clearly and you may not get to the answer. So I did 2 steps to avoid this. The first step was, during the interview day itself, I only ate fruits and I drank mostly water. Please do not go and order a bunch of pizzas or a bunch of hamburgers and have this whole feast during your interview day. Make sure you keep really light fruits or vegetables or whatever you want to keep yourself fueled throughout the day, but nothing too heavy. The second thing that I did is I brewed some really nice herbal tea. This kind of got me really relaxed during the interview process itself, and when I was starting to feel that kind of panic of, oh my god, what do I do? I actually just took a sip of tea, and that mechanical motion of taking the cup, sipping it, and putting it back down really helped me overcome that kind of panic which you may feel during an interview. For saying that, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more, and I'll see you in the next one.